Hi, and welcome back to Mr. Haas's math help videos. This time I'd like us to work on book lesson number 5, which is solving problems with percents. And let's see if we can just, here we go, I'm going to tip that just a little bit more. Okay, so what's a percent? Well, a percent is part of a whole, just like we have with our ratios or a fraction. Well, a fraction is a ratio. Let's take a look at some connections between these things called ratios, fractions, percents, and decimals. We all know that if we have, let's say a box, right? And we cut that in half. Well, that's 1/2, right? Well, that also is the same as 50% of that box, isn't it? Well, it also is 0.5. That's the decimal. In other words, if we have one box, half of it equals 0.5. So that these three values are all equivalent to each other. Okay, let's look at how we can find a percent, how we get to a percent. Now, this is one of those things that we have in the Big 15, the problems that we have to do. And the way that you do it is, let's start off with another easy one. 1/4. Let's say we have a fraction. Oh, we're looking at 1/4 of this box instead, okay? So let me draw a box. 1/4 of the box. Okay. Well, to get that, we take our fraction, 1/4, and remember the king is going to go in the castle. We're going to do a little division here. There's our 1, and the peasants who are underneath, they end up going outside the castle. They don't get to come in. Can 1 be divided by 4? No, it can't. Can 10 be? Yes, it can. We can get 2 4s out of 8, out of 4, 10, and that would be 8. Okay, good. And now we subtract, and we get 2, and bring down our 0. And how many 4s can we get out of 20? Well, we can get 5, because 4 times 5 is 20. And when we do our subtraction, we find that it is even. So now this is our decimal equivalent. So in other words, 1/4 equals 0.25, or 0.25 if you prefer. So that's the decimal equivalent. And you know what? If you think about it in money terms, if I have $1, right, and I take 1/4 of it, or 1/4, well, how much is a quarter worth? It's worth 25 cents. So you can kind of like use money to remind us. Okay, well, here's a really cool thing. To find the percent of a fraction, we have 2 steps. One, we go through the division to find this decimal, okay? And then you take your decimal and you multiply it by 100. Because there is 100% in 1 of something, right? You agree? Yeah. If I've got 1 of something, let's say I have 1 pie, there's 100% of that pie there. If I have 1 sheet of paper, well, there's 100% of that sheet of paper there. Okay. Well, now let's take a look at where this leads us. Well, I have 1/4. That's equal to 0.25. And then if we multiply that by 100, that's going to give me 25%. Okay, here, I'll show you. 100 times 0.25, 5 times 0 is 0, 5 times 0 is 0, 5 times 1 is 5. We're in the tenths column now, so we put that 0 in. 2 times 0 is 0, 2 times 0 is 0, 2 times 1 is 2. Add them all up, 0, 0, 5, 2. and we've got to move over 2 places because there's 2 decimal to the right, or 2 digits to the right of that decimal place. So that's our 25%. 25%. Okay? All right. So now we know how to find what a percent is. So let's talk about how we can use this to our advantage. All right. Remember that when we did a table, right? A table was full of equivalent ratios. Same thing, right? We said miles per hour. And if we did 50 miles in 1 hour, then that means that we would go 100 miles in 2 hours and 150 miles in 3 hours, and so on. Okay? Well, these are all equivalent ratios to each other, because if we divide this one by 3 and this one by 3, we're going to go right back to what we started with. They all have to be equal if they're in this table. Okay, well, let's take a look at how we can use this to advantage and how we can use kind of tables to find out things like, well, answers to percentage problems. Let's say that we wanted to compare how we did in 2 different tests. Well, first of all, let's give ourselves 2 tests. Let's say we got 7 out of 10 correct. Okay, that's easy enough. What about if our second one was, let's say we got 13 out of 15. Ooh, that's kind of nasty, isn't it? Well, if we do our division, changing both of these to decimal places, like this, we know that 10 cannot go into 7, so we put a 0 there, but it can go into 70 7 times, and we do our subtraction, and there you go. So our decimal equivalent of this one is 0.7, or when we multiply that by 100, that gives us 70%. So we got a 70% on that test or quiz. Now we look at this one over here, and we've got the 13. The king goes in the castle, and then there's 15. Oh, this one's going to be a little bit nastier. Okay. Can 15 go into 13? No, but it can go into 130. Well, let's see. I know that 2 times 15 is 30. 3 times 15 is 45. 4 times 15 is 60, right? 60. 5 is 75. And 6 is 90. 7 is 105. And 8 is 120. I think that's as far as I can go. So here's 1, 2, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, 7 times, 8 times. So 120. And I'm going to put my 8 up here. Okay, and then I've got a 10. And I bring down the other 0. And now I know that I can put in 6, because that's 90. That gives me another 10. Oh my gosh, look at this. We're going to get a repeating decimal, right? Because this is just going to keep being a 10 minus 90, or 100 minus 90, and it's just going to keep being. So we have 0.866 repeating. That's what that line means. That bar over the 2 6s there means that 6 is just going to keep going on and on and on. Okay? So when we multiply that by 100, we're going to end up with 86.66% repeating. So which quiz did you do better on? Well, this one here, of course, because you got 86% here and only 70% on that one. Okay, so that's one way we can use our percents to our advantage. Now, here's another problem. Let's say that we are talking about good old Heritage Grove. And we know that there are roughly 300 sixth graders, right? Okay, and every day these students end up going down to the cafeteria. And a certain percent of them buy pizza. Let's say that, let's say 40% buy pizza, okay? All right, they're buying that pizza every day. They just love that pizza. And we know that that number, well, we don't know what that number is. They don't tell us. But we could do this. Remember our double number lines? All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to use those double number lines to our advantage. Here's our zeros, and this is our, let's put this as our students, and this is our percents. Okay, here's 10%, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, and 100%. Well, what do we know? Well, we want to find out how many students buy the pizza. How many of those students represent the 40%? We know that there are 100%, or the whole number of the students in 6th grade, equal 300. Okay, well, what if we divided both of these by 10? Why do we want to do this? Well, here's why. It's going to tell us if we divide 100 by 10, that gives us 10%, right? If we divide 300 by 10, that's going to mean that 10% of the students is equal to 30 students. Okay, big deal, right? Well, remember that these are all equivalent ratios. If I multiply this times 2, that gives me 20%. 10% times 2 is 20%. 30 times 2 is 60 students. If I add 10 and 20 together, that gives me 30. If I add 30 and 60 together, that gives me 90. If I add 10 more percent, that's going to get me up to 40%. That means that I'm going to have to add 30 and 90 together, and that's 120. So you see how we can answer that question of how many students actually buy the pizza? Well, 120 do on a daily basis, and that is 40% of our 300 6th graders. Okay, let's look at this problem in a little bit different way. Maybe we don't know the big total. Well, here, let's say that we know that in a classroom of, let's say 30 students, no, see, I just messed up there. I'm not supposed to tell you the total. Okay, so we're back to the 6th grade situation. But we're at a different school. We're not at Heritage Grove. And we're at this middle school, and they talk about how much they like pizza. I'm just on this whole pizza kick. Gonna make you guys all hungry. This time I'm going to put the number of students up here. And down here we're going to put our percent. And here's our 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, and 100. Got our arrowheads going off that way. All right, so what if I told you that 30% of the students at this school liked reading Harry Potter books? And let's say that that number was, 27. 27 students equals 30%. We could put this 27 up here, right? All right. Well, we want to know, let's see if we can figure out how much 100%, how many students are at that school? Well, here's the way that you do that. We know that this number, 10% down here, is 1/3 of 30%. In other words, if we take 30 and we divide it by 3, we're going to get 10%. So if we do the same thing up here and take this 27 and divide it by 3, we're going to get 9. Okay, so now we know our 10%. And remember that these are all equivalent ratios. So then all we have to do is multiply the 10% times 10, and that's going to get us up to our 100. We have to do the same up top so we maintain equivalency. 9 times 10 is 90. And okay, maybe it is a small school or so, but at least now we know that in this school there are 90 students, or 90 sixth graders or so. Okay, so that's one way we can use percentages to help solve problems. And I think we're going to do just one more for you, and we can maybe get that done real quick. So I'm going to give you a problem where we have a group of students, and we're going to say that we've got, let's say we're here back at our 6th grade students, and let's say that 30% of the girls at Heritage Grove 6th graders went and saw a movie over the weekend. And 40% of the boys in 6th grade, this was a movie, they also went and saw a movie. Okay, so we know that 30% of the girls went out and saw a movie, and that 40% of the boys also went and saw a movie. Well, what if there are 160 girls in the 6th grade, and there are 140 boys? Okay, well, how many girls went to the movies versus how many boys? All right, well, let's do these one at a time. We know when I showed you how to get to a percent, from a decimal to a percent, we multiplied by 100. If we want to change this back to a decimal, all we have to do is divide by 100. Watch. 30% divided by 100 equals 0.30. Okay, it's just same numbers. It's just we kind of move the decimal 2 places over. Okay? Now, if we multiply that by our 160 girls, 160 girls times 0.30, 0 times 0 is 0, 0 times 6 is 0, 0 times 1 is 0. Now we're working with the tenths, so we have to put a 0 placekeeper here. 3 times 0 is 0. 3 times 6 is 18. The 8 goes here. The 1 is up over there. 3 times 1 is 3, plus the 1 is 4. Okay, we bring down the 2 zeros, add them. 0 plus 8 is 8. 4 comes down. We have 1, 2 digits to the right of the decimal. So we go 1, 2 over. And that shows us that 48 girls out of that 160 went and saw movies. Let's try it again with the boys. Okay, so now we've got 40%, okay? 40% divided by 100 gives us that 0.40, that decimal equivalent, okay? Oh, which, by the way, is 40 over 100, right? Or 4/10. Okay, well, that would be our fraction that this came from. Now we have to multiply by, we had 140 boys. 140 times 0.40, right? 0, 0, 0. And you know, we could even just ignore this because we don't really need it, but I'll just leave it in case. We put our other 0 down. 0 times 0 is 0. 4 times 4 is 16. The 6 goes here. The 1 goes up. 4 times 1 is 4, plus the 1 is 5. We do our 5, 6, 0, 0. Again, 2 decimal places because we are 2 digits to the right of the decimal place. Bring it back 1, 2. And there are 56 boys that went and saw movies. So more boys went and saw the movie over the weekend. Even though there's less of them overall in 6th grade, more of them, a greater percent, went and saw the movie. Okay, well, that's where we'll leave it today. Thanks for watching. Sorry this one ran a little long.